Shalom. This week is Parshat Chukat, which means Zot Chukat Torah. This is the mitzvah of the Torah that is perplexing, that we can't know the reason for, the red heifer. How does the red heifer, the ashes of the red heifer mixed with water, purify a person from being in contact with a dead body? That is indeed perplexing. But even more so is that the Kohen, the priest who has to sprinkle the water, must be pure, in a pure state, must be tahor. But then when he sprinkles it on the person who's impure, the person who's impure becomes pure, and the Kohen who sprinkled it becomes impure. Not to as big a level. It just takes a day to escape that kind of impurity by going to the mikveh or waiting until dark. But nonetheless, he becomes impure. So what is the lesson of such a mitzvah? Perhaps we cannot know the true reason for it, but we can derive lessons from everything in the Torah. I think part of the lesson is that there are two ways to live one's Jewish life, to live a religious life. One is to live an insular religious life, to stay in one's own community, not to venture out. This is a very safe way. It's easier to be a spiritual person, to be dutiful to one's religion, if you're not exposed to other things. But of course, there's a downside, which is that you cannot reach out and influence others. You cannot draw other people close because you won't be with them. I think part of the lesson of the red heifer is that the Kohen must become impure to purify others. The Kohen must be willing to go outside of his purity comfort zone in order to be with the Jewish people and there to enable, to facilitate the purity of another Jew. And there are some Jewish communities which are very insular. They live in places where there are only Jews, only religious Jews, and they don't venture out. They don't necessarily become part of the society around them. And there may be an upside to that. It's certainly a safer way to live one's spiritual life. But there are other communities that are integrated into the general world, and in this way they can make a Kiddush Hashem, they can sanctify God's name, and they can reach out like the Kohen who brings purity, but in the process may become impure. My sense is that Kesher Israel is a community that is excellent at being integrated into the general world. We are right here downtown, just a few blocks from the center of government. Many of our congregants are involved in political life, in the social life of our city, in governing the life of our country and the world. And I think that's a positive thing. We can have an influence, a positive influence on other Jews and on the world generally, even though sometimes it might mean brushing up with impurity. Nevertheless, if we do it right, if we keep God in the center and we remember what our purpose is, that it's not selfish, but it's rather to sanctify God's name in the world, to make the world a better place and to bring the Jewish people and others closer to the Torah, then indeed we will be like the Kohen who sprinkles the blood and makes the impure pure, even if the Kohen becomes slightly impure through the process. This week on Monday at noon, we're going to start the Kesher Israel fundraising campaign. It's going to be an online campaign for 36 hours in which we will aim to raise $200,000. Every gift, because there were some very generous donors who have already donated to the campaign, every gift is going to be multiplied by 3. If you give 18, it will be 3 times that. If you give 1,000, it will be 3,000. If you give 10,000, it will be 30,000. And I think we should remember that we are not just any Jewish community. We are a very unique Jewish community because of where we are geographically, because of who our constituents are, and because we strive to go out into the world and to be in the places and with those who are impure in order to bring some purity and some holiness and some justice and some sanctity, more of it and more of it to our people and to the world. Shabbat Shalom.